all good people are asleep and dreaming.
Hey, I just wanted to do a sincere video addressing some of these parents who claim that they have transgender children. I have a child myself, and I've thought about this issue quite a bit. There have been a lot of stories lately in the news about parents saying that my child is trans and they're so proud or they're concerned or whatever they feel, but they're claiming that their child is transgender. And we don't know if a child can be transgender. Trans people, not unlike everyone else, say things such as, oh, I was this way as far back as I can remember. We all say this kind of stuff. But this is retrospective assumptions. It's not actually valid as testimony to a scientific fact. The only way to know objectively if someone is transgender is not by even psychological assessment, because psychological assessment is subjective. The only way to objectively know is by doing a physical brain assessment. Physical differences in trans people's brains have been identified, and more studies are on the way for both children and adults, and they're just not sufficient yet. So far, the sample sizes are just too small. There haven't been enough studies, and a lot of the brain differences that have been identified don't show up until adulthood. So looking at kids based on those brain differences right now is not reliable and kind of pointless. So yeah, you don't know if your kid is trans. Best to leave them alone. What we do know is that kids cross-culturally make classifications about themselves as early as 1.5 years old. The first classification they make is kid versus adult, and the second classification they make is boy versus girl. Nobody tells them this. They make these classifications on their own. When you watch kids play, they self-segregate into opposite sexes, and the only time they don't segregate is when there's not enough kids to play the game. Then kids of all sexes play together. Then the third classification is by age. When there's a really big group of kids, they segregate by age. But again, if the group is still medium or small, all different ages play together. And kids will always have a us versus them mentality in terms of adults. They have their own world, and that's part of that classification process. And that includes gender classification. Now, I'm not accusing every single parent who says they have a trans kid of this, but I think in a lot of cases, if one were to investigate, the parent probably imposed some sort of gray area about the child's gender. Just like that woman in Canada who's refusing to even put male or female on her baby's birth certificate. She thinks the baby's gender neutral. And that actually can have deep psychological effects on a kid, because you're robbing them of the most primal, innate classification that every kid around the world makes almost immediately. You can't mold your child into whatever you want. And we've seen this proven over and over again. And this blows this gender as a social construct theory out of the water. I'll give you the most famous example. This is the story, the very sad story of David Reimer. David Reimer was a Canadian twin boy who had his penis burned off at birth because of a botched circumcision. So naturally, the psychologist swoops in, Dr. Money, and says, "Don't worry, little Canadian folk who don't know nothing. I will take care of your son. We will simply raise him as a girl. He has no penis, and we'll just brainwash him into thinking that he was born female. And I'll help with psychological sessions for the rest of his life." So the parents, being scared of their son growing up without a penis as a boy, thought that raising him as a girl would be a better option. They tried to turn him into a girl, basically. They tried to make David transgender. They did an operation and gave him like a pseudo-vagina as well when he was young. Anyways, he always had issues, even before puberty, because this is very methodically documented in the psychological analysis. He became very suicidal to the point of where his parents told him the truth, and the truth was a huge sense of relief for David. And he transitioned back to his original gender and became a boy, and adjusted to society a lot better after that, and even got married to a woman who already had children and lived a regular-ish life. Unfortunately, the psychological trauma of that experience never left him, and he ended up killing himself in his 30s. The reason why I bring up this point is that nurture is not that powerful. You cannot mold a child into whatever you want. You cannot tell a child that they're trans or tell a child that they don't have a gender and think that that's like a normal thing that will be adopted by the child for the rest of their life. No, your child is going to be who they are. So if they are actually trans and they end up knowing that for certain once they're of age and can make those decisions, fine. But as children, stop pushing them into either or direction. Leave your fucking kids alone. You don't need to give them blue balls or pink dollies based on the gender, or give them opposite toys because you believe that there's no such thing as gender. That's fucking stupid. It doesn't work. It's so surface and basic and skin deep, you know. These are internal, sophisticated, complicated brain issues, and gender is not just some stamp that society puts on you. It's interrelated with the rest of your being. And the more confusion you introduce into their life, and at the earlier age you do this, it's not gonna do any good. At best, you're gonna ruin your relationship with them, and at worst, they're gonna kill themselves. So don't make your child into some sort of a political statement. Please, please.